Is there a particular reason that understanding exomoons is just important for furthering our general astronomical knowledge? And the second question is, are exomoons or maybe moons just more generally a particularly interesting place to be looking for life?
Yeah, I think I can answer those together, in fact. So I normally say there's 4 really big reasons why we should be looking for exomoons. The first one is the second part of your question, that they could themselves be habitable. And we're familiar with that from science fiction, of course. You have Star Wars often has habitable moons. You have Pandora from Avatar plays with this idea most famously. So,
is Pandora a moon in Avatar?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. If you watch the opening sequence, there's this beautiful blue Neptune-like gas giant, and then the moon, this Earth-like moon, which orbits around it.
That's cool.
So I use that footage a lot when I'm talking about exomoons because it's a great stock footage for me to show. So yeah, it's certainly possible. There's no reason why moons couldn't be habitable. And it's a really important question because one of the overarching goals of NASA is to measure the occurrence rate of Earth-like planets. Now, they say planets, but I think it should just be worlds, Earth-like worlds. And it very well may be that there are more Earth-like moons than there are Earth-like planets right now, because there's a lot of gas giants in the habitable zone. We know of about 1 to 2% of stars, sun-like stars, seem to have evidence for Earth-like planets around them. It's quite a small fraction. With a huge error bar, there's a lot of discussion about what that true number is. But we have much more certainty about gas giants, and they seem to be quite common. Around sort of 10% of sun-like stars seem to have Neptunes or Jupiters in the habitable zones of their stars. So an obvious question is whether those planets have moons, because then they're just the right distance for life. So that's a very exciting possibility. The other reason to do this science is we think moons have a big influence on planets themselves. So obviously the Earth is the great example here. We have a very large moon, a kind of freakishly large moon compared to other planets in the solar system. And that actually stabilizes the obliquity of our planet, the spin axis. So Earth has about a 23-degree tilt. And if the moon was not there, Jupiter's gravity would take over and cause it to wander over millions of years. And that's actually what happens to Mars. On Mars, its orbital axis actually drifts over many billions of years. So there could be periods where the North Pole is basically pointing at the sun for like 3 months of the year or something. And that would be disastrous for the climate. I mean, you could imagine simple life being fine with this, but you wouldn't be able to have agriculture. You wouldn't be able to have the kind of civilization, the agrarian civilization we have on such a world. So that seems to be an important part of our own history. So I think when we find an Earth twin, one of the first questions you might ask is, does it have a moon twin? Because that seems to have an enormous impact on our own planet. A third reason to do this is to try and understand the uniqueness of our own moon formation mechanisms that we see in the solar system. Again, with our own moon, it seems to have formed via a giant impact. And it seems like that's the only instantiation of that in the solar system, of forming such a large moon. And we just don't know how common that is. Maybe we are a 1 in a trillion event in the universe where that happened. And that's why we're here, because it happened. Or maybe giant impacts happen all the time in other solar systems, and they often form moons this way. So the story of uniqueness, I think, is one of the most interesting questions in science. Is like, how special or normal are we in the landscape of possibilities in the universe? And the fourth big reason I'd say to do this science is actually more of a practical point. We want to one day build a telescope. It's probably going to be the next successor to James Webb that will take a photo of another Earth-like planet. It will really image it. So to do that is very difficult. You have to block out the starlight with these coronagraphs, which is a very precise technology. You have to suppress the starlight by a factor of 1 billion to 1. It's a very difficult suppression. But if you can do that, you can just have the pale blue dot of the Earth-like planet. And obviously, we've done that for the Earth with our spacecraft. There's the famous pale blue dot image that Voyager 1, I think it was, took of the Earth in the 1990s at the request of Carl Sagan. So it's a really beautiful image if you've never seen that one before. And we want to capture that same image of an exoplanet one day. But as beautiful as that image will be, and it will reveal to us the gases, the composition, the surface properties of that planet, the moon will be photobombing that image, because the moon is so close to the planet that it will not be distinguishable. It will be not really a pale blue dot, but really a pale blue-gray dot. It'll be kind of smudged together, the two worlds. And so when you think you're seeing just the planet by itself, you're not. You're seeing a combination. And that could be really problematic. Titan, for instance, has a methane-rich atmosphere, and the Earth has oxygen in it. And you can imagine that oxygen being produced without life. Actually, there are ways to make oxygen just through ultraviolet radiation breaking water apart, for instance. So if you had that combination of a lifeless Earth that had oxygen from this ultraviolet radiation, and then you had a Titan-like moon that was photobombing inside there, you'd have methane and oxygen. And you would think that is actually the classic biosignature. That's what astrobiologists talk about as being the dead giveaway that you found life. If you have those two things together, that's chemically impossible to happen unless there is life active on the surface. That's what they say.
Smoking gun.
The smoking gun, thank you. And so this moon would trick you. You know, if you didn't know that moon was there, you would erroneously conclude that you detected life. So just from a practical perspective, we are not going to be able to do that experiment. We just cannot do that experiment until we know how often moons get in the way. So for me, that's a really big reason to do it as well.